This is a very special You're Not Stupid guide, everybody. This is about a topic that I think is the biggest, most concerning topic in the entire Amiga community, and nobody seems to give a shit about it. This is about aspect ratios, and specifically NTSC versus PAL Amiga. And this is a problem with all computers back then. This is a problem with all consoles back then. They really truly fuck up the aspect ratios modern day. But the Amiga, it is by far the biggest offender. When people are playing the Amiga in WinUAE, which defaults into PAL mode, 99% of what you see is incorrect online. This is a huge problem. It deserves 1 million views. All right, not me. I don't deserve 1 million views. This topic deserves 1 million views because it is that important. History is being destroyed, and if you care about history, if you care about any of this stuff, then you will listen to this topic, and hopefully, if you're one of these people that are doing it this way, you will change. This video was so encompassing that I had to split it into 2 parts. I simply had too much to say, and despite really cutting the footage down quite a bit already, it's still too long. So I'm going to split them into 2. Part 1 is going to be me explaining the problem in technical details, just a conversation about it, and we're going to go on a real Amiga. We're going to show the problem in both PAL and NTSC modes, and we're going to show you how to show these correctly on a real Amiga. Part 2 is going to be a little different. Part 2, we're going to go modern day. We're going to look at some videos. We're going to show you Deluxe. We're going to show you an old video of Deluxe Paint. You know, showing these things in 4x3 NTSC mode as it was supposed to be. You know, and we're going to show you an actual artist who designed some of these Amiga games, and he's got something to say to everybody doing videos on his games. Spoiler alert, he thinks you all have it wrong, the artist. So yeah, definitely stick around for part 2. Big revelations, okay? In part 2, we're also going to dirty our hands with WinUAE, an Amiga emulator. I'm going to go on WinUAE, and I'm going to show you how to show these games right on an emulator. So I had to split them up because it's just too damn big. I really hope you guys will stick with both of them, because this is such an important topic. The most important topic when it comes to Amiga games currently. It's the biggest topic that nobody is talking about, and it's that important. I'm serious. This one needs discussed. So please, I don't beg for much, but please, if you guys are a member of an Amiga forum, any computer forum, if you're a Facebook page, any Facebook page dealing with computers or Amigas, please send this one out there, because I don't deserve the views. This topic deserves the views, and nobody talks about it. So maybe I can get a couple people to talk about it. This one deserves it. So it's going to be a 2-parter. You know, if you want to see there's going to be a link to the second part if it's out already, and if not, stay tuned for it. So there's the link to the second part if you guys want to see it. And yeah, I really hope you guys will. Really hope you guys will stick around for this one. This is the most important video I have ever done. Hello YouTube. Now this video here, this is the one I was born to make, I think. These are the thoughts that inspired me to actually want to be on YouTube. Most people have an inspiration, kind of, like they might look towards the nerd or whoever and be like, yeah, I watched them and I loved their stuff and I wanted to make videos. And it's not quite the same with me. I am kind of inspired by other people, but it was because I looked at their stuff and I wasn't liking what I saw. They're not showing them correctly. They're almost always showing them in widescreen, which just, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that in 1985, when the Commodore Amiga and DOS was around, that there were no 16:9 displays. There was no such thing as widescreen television. There was widescreen films. That's a different story. What everybody saw back in the day when they played computer games or console games was a specific 4:3 display. Nowadays, everybody's stretching the images, and the Amiga is the worst of them all. it happens on every system, period, from back then. I see it on DOS, I see it on the NES. They don't understand they're doing it wrong, and even some of the people that think they're doing it right are doing it wrong. You can have your capture software, like, you know, do a 1-for-1, pixel for pixel perfect capture, and it's wrong. Like the NES had like a 250 by 255 like resolution, which is like almost completely square. That's what was the technical resolution, but everything was still being designed for 3, which is a little wider than that. DOS and Amiga primarily was a 320 by 200 display, and that's actually very wide. It's almost 16 by 9 actually. It's a very wide format, but everything was being designed on a 4:3 monitor, so it was like it was supposed to be stretched into 4:3. It's like, so even if you get the emulator set to like to match it pixel for pixel perfect, you're still getting it wrong. So even the people that think they're doing it right are not doing it right. Anyway, this is the stuff that I saw online, and I hated it. I can't, and I couldn't believe that these people, like, none of them, it never interested them. It's like they're looking at these stretched images and it doesn't faze them at all. It's like, oh, that's normal to them, and they're looking at it wrong. I don't know. It's like, to me, video games are art, and a lot of them are art. And it's like taking the Mona Lisa, which is a portrait. It's a portrait. It's like taking the portrait and it's like stretching it to fill your widescreen display, and what you get is this. It looks like the damn jack-o'-lantern. Okay, it looks like a face. Like that's what your stuff looks like when you stretch it. It's like certain specific like computer-related people that should know better, I believe, and they still do it wrong. And it's not that I don't like these people at all. I'm still subscribed to most of them. The thing is, like, I just think they could have done better, and they don't care. They just don't care. So I would see this constantly, and I'm like, can't anybody do this right? Anybody? And that was kind of what made me want to be on YouTube for a long time. That's not what actually made me make my first video. My first video was made just because I happened to think something was funny and maybe you people would like it. But what made me want to create a YouTube channel in the first place before I did my first video was specifically aspect ratios and people getting them wrong all the time. Now there's a lot to talk about with aspect ratios. I'm going to focus primarily with the Amiga because most people, that's 99% of what you see online regarding the Amiga with 320 by 200 games specifically are incorrect. 99% of what you see. And it happens in DOS, and it happens in the Genesis, and it happens everywhere. But I'm telling you, there are people using DOS emulators or Genesis emulators or whatever that actually do care and do it right. There are certainly a lot of people that don't care, but there are people that care. Now with the Amiga, even the people that think they're doing it right are doing it wrong. 99% of the Amiga videos you see online, 320 by 200, it's wrong. So I'm going to focus specifically on the Amiga, but before we get to the Amiga, there's a little background information you have to be aware of. You have to understand aspect ratios. Now, what's an aspect ratio? It's simply the image that you see. It's the borders around the image that you see. Right now you are seeing me in 16 by 9 widescreen, which is the standard television format of today. Prepared a couple very rough slides for you. But what you are seeing is 16 by 9, but what used to be the standard for televisions for a very long time was 4:3, which is, it kind of looks like a square, but it actually is wider than it is tall. But yeah, 4:3 means, for every 4 wide, it's 3 tall. Okay, so it's a little wider than it is tall. That's 4:3. And this monitor that you see right here, that's 4:3. That is what all the television sets, all the computer monitors were back then. That's what they all look like. Okay, that's not the only aspect ratio though. There's also 3:2, which is actually, there's no borders on this because 3:2 is the size of a standard piece of paper. cheaper. 3.2 is the standard 35mm format. This is a 35mm slide. So what you see in the middle there, that is 3.2. Because 3.4 sounds, bigger than 3.2, you think, oh well then, wouldn't that be smaller or something? No, technically 3.2 is much wider than 4.3. But that's 35mm. That's 35mm. That's 3.2. Or if you do a portrait, it's 2.3. Those are an aspect ratio. These are wide. It's not 16:9 wide, but this is standard 35mm. It's a very nice. This is my preferred widescreen format actually. It's 3.2. I think 16:9 is a little too wide. So we got 4.3. We have 3.2, which is 35mm. We have 16:9, which if you take the piece of paper, it's about like that. Okay, that's 16:9. There's 21:9, which is like taking two 4.3s and putting them together. Super duper widescreen mode, and not too many TVs are around like that. And there are a few movies that come out like that. That is a very uncommon way to do it because it's too goddamn wide. It looks terrible if you ask me. You'll probably see Star Wars movies like that. There are certain movies that you will see. Star Trek definitely was in 21:9 aspect ratio. It's super widescreen. I don't like it. There are others too. What you see here, I believe is either a 220, 230, or 120 piece of film. As you can see, here's the 35mm and here's the 220 or whatever the hell it is, and they actually have the same borders. The overall slide is the same, but what you see on the 220, it's a lot bigger, isn't it? A lot of people think that just because it's wide, you're actually seeing more than the traditional image, and you would be massively incorrect with that. That's what do you see in a lens? Common camera lens is a circle. It's a circular thing. The most you could ever show in any image is a complete circle, a fisheye. A fisheye lens, when you look at it, when you see the actual picture and everything, it's a circle. That's the most you could ever get out of a lens, is a circle. Cameras make a decision. Do we want it, what is the aspect ratio we want? And they usually cut out the information otherwise. 35mm, when inside of the camera itself, it has a shutter. And the shutter, it's a certain, it lets in a certain amount of light. It could have, if it felt like it could have let in a little more, but it chooses to have it this way. That's 35mm, but it could have been like this. This is actually showing more information than this. I want to talk about anamorphic widescreen format a little bit, because anamorphic widescreen will help you understand what DOS and Amiga games and Genesis games and a lot of games were doing back in the day. Because a lot of people that do care about aspect ratios don't get it right, because to them it's pixel. We want pixel for pixel. We want one for one. We want it exactly how it was originally, and they're still getting it wrong because originally it wasn't correct. Anamorphic widescreen shown here. Now take a 3.2 35mm film. Take that 3.2. This is what normally happens for movies too. This is what normally they do. Is they have all the cameras on set, but what they have is they have the cameras connected to video monitors so they can see what they're actually going to film, and on the monitors themselves they crop it, or they don't. You can still see it, but they have lines going across the monitor so they can see it how it will actually be on the final product, but they're actually seeing a lot more of the image. The 21 by whatever, that's the worst. The very super widescreen, that's the worst. Because there's all this information up on top and on the bottom that they're missing. And they choose to have it super wide just for the effect. Just to make it look cool. That's all they're doing it for. They're not actually showing you more. A lot of people think you take a 4:3 television and you go into 16:9. It's like take this image and then add more to it. That's what people think about when they think about widescreen, and they would be completely incorrect. what you're actually seeing is, think of the 4:3, and then you put black bars, and then enlarge it to your screen, and that's what you're actually getting most of the time. You're not actually seeing more information, you're seeing less. This is anamorphic widescreen, which is, say, you film it in Hollywood on 35mm film, which is 3:2. And in order for it to go onto your television, 16:9, if that's the aspect ratio they want, all they do is crop. They crop it. There's all this information at the top, and they've decided to crop it. They package that, and that's what you see at home. But there was all this information that you'll never see. It's gone forever. So this is what you see. 3:2 cropped into a 16:9 format. That's normally what happens with movies, is they just crop the image that they see on the actual monitor. They crop it later on, and that's how you get your image. That's usually what they do. But there is another way they can do it, and this is called anamorphic widescreen. Now this is where they take the 3:2 image. As you see, there was a 16:9 image here. They take this, and using a special lens, they distort it to fit the 3:2. And this is what they do in Hollywood for these anamorphic widescreen things. Because when you do this, when you take a 3:2 image and all you do is crop it and then you enlarge it to fill your televisions or the movie screen, when you do that, you're actually losing quality. It's like you're zooming in on the image, and every time you zoom in on an image, you're losing quality of what was there originally. So in order to combat that, they will sometimes, not usually, but sometimes they will put a lens, a special lens on the camera itself that will distort it into 3:2. So you saw my little stick figure earlier, which was cropped from the 3:2 into a 16:9. And they'll take the 16:9 image using a special lens, and they'll fill the entire 3:2 out. But what happens is it's distorted. Now my stick figure, his head looks like the jack-o'-lantern. His legs look really wide. His arms, like, nothing looks right. And that is 1 for 1. Pixel for pixel. Perfect. That's perfect. That's how it was designed. That is what's on the actual film itself, is this distorted, ugly image. That is like what's on the Amiga in DOS. 320x200 is a distorted image from the get-go. It's for memory reasons. They do it to save memory, hardware limitations, whatever, but it was always supposed to be stretched. So you got this 3:2 image, and then later on, it's all distorted. But later on, when it's actually projected in the movie theater, they use a special projector. And using a special projector, they will take that 16:9 image that was distorted, and they'll show it correctly. They'll reintroduce it into a 16:9. And why do they do that? Why don't they just crop it? It's because when you distort it, you're actually getting the same information, but you're getting more quality. You're using the entire 35mm frame to put, information there, and then when you put it back into 16:9, what you get looks better. It's better quality. It's not like you're zooming in anymore. It's like exactly how you saw it originally. So that is why they do it. That's called anamorphic widescreen. It is a thing. It's a professional Hollywood thing, and that's how they do it in Hollywood. Not too many movies do that. There are movies that do that, but it costs them, special lenses and equipment to do that. The basic idea of 320x200 back in the day. 640x480, which was a common display later on, which was SVGA. 640x480, that's a natural 4:3 resolution. 800x600, 4:3 resolution. 1024x800, that's a natural 4:3 resolution. 320x200 was a widescreen resolution, but that was the most common resolution back in the day, even though nobody had a widescreen monitor. So when you have the lessons of the anamorphic widescreen, you will better understand why 320x200 is not supposed to be pixel for pixel. It's the same concept. They used 320x200 because of limitations back in the day, memory limitations, whatever. Make it a little faster, use a little less memory, but the overall design, it was supposed to be stretched into 4:3 later on by the monitor itself. On this You're Not Stupid guide, I am going to take a look at 320 by 200 display specifically on the Amiga and why everybody is showing it incorrectly online. And they all are. I'm going to show you specific examples of things that are going to set the world on fire if anybody gives a shit. And nobody does, but there are some very crazy resolutions out there. And they were all designed to be put into 4:3. But when you see the actual, what it is, pixel for pixel, and it's going to surprise some of you. And you're going to understand, I hope, that you've gotten it wrong forever. Even the people that think they're getting it right, you're going to understand you've gotten it wrong. And I'm going to show you how to do it right. I'm even going to pick up a fucking emulator, which I haven't touched an emulator for a very long time. I haven't touched an emulator on the Amiga for 8 years. I'm going to try to show you how to do it right, because I used to do it right on emulators, so hopefully I'm still able to. Hopefully I can inspire some of you to do it right. Maybe I can inspire some of you to get angry and talk about it. I don't care. Go ahead and be angry. I don't give a shit. You're doing it wrong. It doesn't mean you have bad videos. You know, you could have fantastic commentary. You could be 1,000 times better than me in a million other areas. But I'm telling you right now, this part you've got wrong. And you want to make your videos better? Then try. Try to get this part right. It'll help. And once you see it, I don't think you'll ever go back. Once you see your own videos, you might not care when you see my videos or other people's videos, but when you see your own videos displayed in the natural resolution they were supposed to be displayed at, you're never going to go back to distorting this shit into 16 by 9. To making a human face look like a jack-o'-lantern. You'll never go back to that. As always, there will be a very detailed table of contents for you guys to look at. This is the You're Not Stupid guide on classic computer resolutions, 320 by 200, how to do it right, and I hope you enjoy it.
There's a very specific reason why this is such a huge deal on the Amiga versus other computers at the time, and that's specifically because of Europe. Europeans had this special resolution that they had, 320 by 256 on the Amiga. They had extra resolution, 56 more pixels in the vertical direction. In America, we just had the 320 by 200. But when they played it on their actual Amigas, they got the 320 by 200 within that 320 by 256 display. So what they actually saw was this stretched widescreen version. Now look at the television on the upper left. That's PAL mode. Look at the monitor, the computer monitor. Look at it in the bottom right. Which one looks like a real 4:3 monitor? Yes, they didn't have 16 by 9 back in the day. All Amiga emulators, including the big boy WinUAE, which most people use, default into PAL mode. That's the default. The default is wrong. It's stretched. It stretches these images wrong. You see that computer? Did you look at that computer right there? Yeah, that was an NTSC 4x3 computer there. I really don't think it's that hard a concept to understand, but if you don't think that computer is enough, well, how about this? How about an actual Ferrari F40 shown? Bottom left there. Above it is the car as it appears in PAL mode. I believe it should be pretty obvious that the car in PAL mode there is very stretched. It is very wide. It's not how it should look. I also have the screens. Upper left is PAL mode. Bottom right is NTSC mode. It is running so much faster in NTSC mode as intended. And there the car shows in NTSC mode. It is perfect replica. The Ferrari F40 is perfect. Perfect. And that's all the evidence you ever need. That's all the evidence that you need to know I'm right about this. This is how the artists that design these things in Deluxe paint, that's how they saw them, right there. Ferrari F40, NTSC mode, perfect fucking replica of the actual car shown below it. You also see that the NTSC mode finishes at 51 seconds. 51 seconds the NTSC mode finishes at, and the PAL mode's still going, and it finishes at 49 seconds. 8 seconds fucking slower for a total of 10 seconds.
Recent review I did was for Lost Dutchman Mine on the Amiga. Now, just for the perspective thing, here is a normally fledged human being. Look, eagerly looking at some gold there, with a horse in the background in the sun. It's a, it's a pretty nice picture there. And anyway, he looks like a human. He looks normal. All right, let's look at him in PAL mode, shall we?
And here's the Lost Dustbin Mine in PAL mode. Again, it's in a widescreen format, not showing up in the 4x3. And look at this motherfucker. He's huge. It's just not the proper image. It's not a human being we're looking at right there. It's just this ridiculous looking dude. You will notice that it is in a widescreen format. All cutscenes in Wing Commander are in widescreen, in NTSC mode. People that think that it was intentionally in PAL mode, all these games were intentionally supposed to be in widescreen. Here it is in NTSC mode, and it's in widescreen. It's because the designers wanted it to be in widescreen. Again, all the gameplay screens are in a 4:3, just like they are in DOS, as it was supposed to be. 4:3. Bar scenes at 4. It's all in 4x3 until you click on the guy. And now it is in widescreen, just like in DOS. His face, that's a proportion. That's a regular human face proportion. That is an accurate model of a human face. And Wing Commander for the Amiga, you know, it was actually designed in Europe. But the source material is American. You know, Origin, you know, is American company. For DOS, originally, it was all, you know, this way. It was all supposed to be 4x3. So they ported it over to Europe, and I don't know if the designers, you know, had NTSC machines there, and that's how they were designing them. I'm sure they all had, like, NTSC shit. I'm sure companies back then had that crap. Or not. But either way, they were dealing with the original source material, you know, which was 320 by 200. And they never bothered, you know, to proportionally make it correct for PAL Amiga. So even some games which would have been designed in Europe, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's still designed for Americans. And I'm sure that could make you guys angry. I'm sure that could make you guys angry because, you know, even stuff that was designed in your own country, you didn't get it designed for you, honestly. But, you know, I'm just saying, like, all this shit, I don't care where it was designed, this stuff was designed to sell in America. Check out Wing Commander, which is now in a laughably huge, freaking anamorphic widescreen mode in PAL. This is just, it's laughable. It's laughable. It's so terrible how anamorphic it is. How little of the screen you are seeing right now in 4x3. PAL, on a 4x3 monitor, how little of it we are actually seeing. It's laughable. Obviously, the normal screen is showing up in a wider format too, but okay, these screens, these conversation screens, they're just ridiculous to look at in this mode. My eyes, they're getting screwed with. I have this whole screen to work with, and this is how much I'm seeing. Because the designers in NTSC mode wanted it to be in widescreen. They wanted it to be like this, like you would see in the theater. They wanted it to be in a normal widescreen mode. But now you have it in PAL mode, which takes the NTSC image, which was supposed to be in widescreen, and stretches it even more to where we are now looking at just this ridiculous, anamorphic, widescreen nonsense, which was never supposed to be there. Oh my god. And why is it going slower? It's because even though it is 320 by 200, just like it is in NTSC, you are still seeing, the resolution is still 320 by 256. You're just only seeing the 320 by 200 portion of it. So everything is running, you know, just a little, 20% slower. 20% slower. You get less picture, you get a distorted picture, and you get stuff that is running slow. Let's load up Deluxe Paint here in PAL mode. Which we can, in PAL mode, you can have either option. We can change it to 320 by 200. We can change it to 320 by 256, and you can make it look right, you know, in whatever mode. But obviously, 320 by 256 is going to be in a 4x3 mode, you know, displaying properly the thing. And we have a circle tool. Let's do that a little differently. which comes out. It looks, I don't know, doesn't look exactly perfect, but it looks like a circle. Looks normal enough in PAL mode. Let's just change it now. If we change it right now to NTSC, the current picture, it still looks like a circle, doesn't it? Yeah. It doesn't look much different to me, but what if we put another circle on? Does it still look? It'll probably still look the same. Oops. How did I get that full? Get that full. I want that full. There you go. Yeah, it looks like a circle. I don't think it's actually perfect, but it's close enough. It's close enough to perfect. Let's load up 320 by 200 NTSC mode, which again shows the entire screen now. This is how they would have looked at it, and again, we can, there's more to it too. We could, go a little bit, there's more that we're not completely seeing the entire screen. However, go to the circle tool and you will see. It's not showing everything, is it? A circle is not a circle, is it? Not quite. It's more of an oval. And it's an NTSC mode, but this is how it would have been looked at. Anybody designing a game, would have seen everything correct. However, you could make it a perfect circle in NTSC mode simply by using this tool. This is the oval tool, or whatever, or just any kind of circle tool, and so there were circles that looked correct in NTSC mode. The artist had to do it themselves, like that. God damn it. Practically perfect right there. But the standardized circle tool in Deluxe Paint in NTSC mode isn't a perfect circle. It's just not. And this is the primary thing that the World of Longplays idiot was using to fend off everything. Just look at the circles. The circles aren't right, so it cannot possibly be designed for NTSC. Fucker, Deluxe Paint was designed by Electronic Arts in America for the Amiga. And there it is. There's all the proof you ever need. Okay, yes, the circles aren't perfect. They're still circle enough. Especially the smaller ones, they look circle enough. But everybody designing the games, this is what they saw. So everything else, they would have designed the faces. If they were, drawing shit. Everything else would have been designed to look correct in their eye. In this mode, because they would have had the 4x3 screen. And I'm going to show you, a little in the background here, where you look to the left there, you're going to see a video by Electronic Arts themselves showing off Deluxe Paint. And I will link that video in the description if you want to watch the whole thing. It's like a 2-hour-long thing, just an instructional video, and yeah, it's in 4x3. The picture itself is on a VCR tape in 4x3. They are showing you a monitor in 4x3, and Deluxe Paint is shown, filling the entire screen as it is here. So the faces, whatever it is they would have wanted to draw in their heart's content, would have been designed to look correct right here. I can't draw, so I can't really show you. But whatever proportions, whatever, would have been designed to look correct in this mode. If we're drawing a Ferrari or something, it would have been designed to look correct here. So here's my weird looking, I don't know, whatever. There's my fucking weird looking penis car. And a huge slap of the face of anybody that believes otherwise. I actually used this as an example once on the World of Longplays idiot. Knights of the Sky. Stretching screens, number 7. You can stretch your display to fit the full screen by clicking on Stretch Screen icon. As this uses an undocumented hardware feature, it might not work on all Amigas. They actually included this game with a fucking program to stretch it, and they say stretch screen. It's for, this was because the people, this was an American game, but obviously the people for the Amiga developing it were in Europe, and they actually included it And it doesn't just say stretch screen to make it, stretch screen. It actually says 60 hertz. It doesn't say PAL is in 50 hertz, stretch screen. So here it is, Knights of the Sky. It's going to close Workbench for us and play it in PAL mode incorrectly. Again, a very super, something that would have been designed to be a little, like film, and now it's in super widescreen, which Knights of the Sky actually runs fine in PAL mode, speed-wise. It's okay, at least this part of it. Here's the screen, obviously, in widescreen mode. And people will point this, and the guy, wanted to use the circle argument on me for this one. Because, as you will see, the gauges, the RPM gauge, all those look like, complete perfect circles in PAL mode. So he's like, oh, how dare you say this was designed in NTSC mode? How dare you say it wasn't designed for PAL mode because the circles, whatever. As I already showed you in Deluxe Paint bullshit, you cannot draw a perfect circle in NTSC mode. It's just impossible because it's based on, mathematical formulas. So, again, this one runs okay in either mode. You're not going to have like the worst gameplay in either mode, which is, for most games, the speed thing isn't going to be that big of an issue. But the speed thing is there, by the way. It is there. So, yeah, here we are in PAL mode again. But we are going to use this stretch screen thing, which is included on the game itself. And it just stretched the screen for us in Workbench, actually, which it looks a little weird because obviously my monitor is set up, for different things. But yeah, it's actually I don't think it's actually changed the speed. I think it's just changed the as and it's not exactly doing it correctly, but again, this was included, and it probably would have looked better on a real monitor. Mine's not Mine is not a Commodore monitor from back in the day, but it's just going to look a little off. But here it is, themselves. The people in Europe saying, you know what? It's there for you guys. Play it right. And this isn't just to cater to people that bitched. Like today, a lot of people bitch about, things not being in widescreen, so they stretched the old television shows that were in 4:3, they stretched it into widescreen. This was not that equivalent of people saying, oh, I got this monitor, why don't you have it all full? It's not the same thing. There's people, it's like, this was what it was designed to look like. And people actually did know about the issue back then. I've talked to some people in Germany who had, shops, dedicated to importing stuff for the Amiga. And that's what they dealt with. It's just because they were that pissed off about everything. And here it is, it's in full screen. And it looks right. There it is, in a fucking game itself. Right there, to shut you up. This is how it's supposed to look. Stretch it, please. Yeah, that's what they're saying. Please stretch this image because this is not how it's supposed to look like. That's what they're saying. Let's look at it in NTSC mode. Just to see if it's low. And this is one of them where the music is actually, where the game is so slow that the music itself is slow. And look how long it took Guybrush to get the fuck off the screen there. But listen to that music. It's so fucking slow. It's already smoother. Immediately drawn to the music, which is now much faster. This whole game is, playable on an Amiga 500 in NTSC mode. And so, again, magazines in Europe, they were saying, oh, this stuff is unplayable, get a 1200. It was not unplayable. It's just these people were not thinking, okay, maybe this was designed for the American audience, NTSC mode, where it would have been running in 60 hertz, 20% faster. It all makes sense when you think of it like that. But now my Amiga is, you know, a PAL Amiga. Actually, old NTSC board. It's originally an NTSC machine, but I actually bought, you know, the PAL motherboard from Europe, you know, so I could have compatibility with the PAL games. And I switched out the motherboards, and but I still have the same, you know, American power supply and all that other stuff. But it's essentially a PAL Amiga. Now, how do I get it into NTSC mode? How do I show you guys it? Well, I got a program, and I think you can get it off of AmigaNet. If you can, if that's where I found it, I will link it to you. Wherever it was, I will link it. It's simply called Degrader. You put Degrader on your system, and you press enter. And you can put it on a disk too if you don't have a hard drive. And we have an options menu here where we have several different things, you know, that we could do. We could free up some memory. We could turn off the disk drive, DF1, if we wanted to. There's, you know, mostly what I do is here it is, 50 hertz, 60 hertz, and 60 hertz system. We got some other stuff which we don't really have to bother with, but 60 hertz and 60 hertz system. Now, if we just do 60 hertz, you'll see what you saw in Knights of the Sky, which it will just stretch the screen. It'll make it fill the screen, but the speed will be off. And we can do 60 hertz system, but leave off, you know, the 60 hertz, and that will make it speed up to NTSC 60 hertz, but it will actually show it in widescreen. So what you need is both of them, 60 hertz and 60 hertz system. And all we do is, and you can say survive reset, which will mean it'll be once, and then once you reset it, it'll go back to PAL mode, or survive resets, which is usually what I do, and it'll just stay there until you completely turn off the computer itself. So we say survive resets, and it does its little trick here. And right now it's, you know, accessing something, you know, on the PAL chip, and it's now in NTSC mode, which I have to do another little switch here so you guys can see it right. And that's how I see it. And this is NTSC mode, right there for you guys. Yeah, it's now in NTSC mode. It's running the correct speed and everything, but you need a correct chip for it. The correct, I think it's the Agnes chip, Fat Agnes chip. It needs to be of an ECS sort. It doesn't. I don't necessarily think it has to be full ECS, but it has to have something. The Agnes chip has to be correct. I think what you need is a kickstart of 1.3, and you have this ability to do this. If you have 1.2, which is the original, you will not be able to do this on the actual Amiga. So, you know, have at the games, however you want. If you have the real Amiga and you can't, then don't. Well, you can't, well, so don't. But if you have a kickstart of 1.3, you should be able to use this software to get it into NTSC mode. You can even alter the, you can even put a switch on your Amiga itself, connect some switches up to the Fat Agnes chip, and, you know, change it, you know, whenever you want, which is what I would want, but I don't really want to mess with the chips. Or, yeah, you can change it permanently if you want, but then you won't be able to get back to the other side. But, yes, that's what you need. And I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to take a rare delve into, I'm going to take a rare delve onto the emulation side of things and show you how to set this up on WinUAE, the most popular.
So that's the end of part 1 on the You're Not Stupid guide about aspect ratios, PAL versus NTSC, whatever you want to call it. A very, very important topic that is near and dear to my heart. And I hope I've explained quite a bit of it right now, but there's going to be a part 2. I hope you guys will check out part 2 when it's available. And please, comment on this one. Share this one. Let this one, get this one out there. It deserves to be out there. It's a very important topic, and so far I'm the only one that's talking about it. It has to change, because history will be utterly altered. In 20 years, nobody's going to talk about this stuff, and all you're going to get is these screenshots and these gameplay footages of just something that nobody back in the day would have saw. that can't happen. That cannot be allowed to happen willingly. Somebody has to step up. Somebody has to say something. I'm doing it right now. Do your part and just share, comment, talk about it, please.